Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to another of our Managing Your Small Business Beyond the Pandemic webinar. This is number 73. So great to be here for the 73rd consecutive week. Well, I missed a couple, but we've had a very good guest host fill in. So good afternoon. My name's Kelly Bearden. I am the director of the CSU Bakersfield SBDC, or Small Business Development Center. And as I mentioned, we are part of the SBDC program, the nationwide Small Business Development Center program. America's SBDC is in all 50 states and about 6 or 7 other territories. In California, we have different regions because of the size of the state. We have regions that are in Los Angeles and Orange County and San Diego and a Northern California region and a Central California region. And our Central California region goes from the Pacific Ocean to the state of Nevada, from the top of Lake Topaz up in Mono County, down to the Grapevine in Kern County. So lots of places in between, lots of good businesses, and lots of good assistance that you can get if you have a particular issue. Any particular issue, small business wise, either consulting and valuable training, is offered not only at our Bakersfield office, our downtown Bakersfield office, through our consultants, but also in Clovis, which covers the 4 counties from Madera, Fresno, Kings, and Tulare, in Merced for Merced and Mariposa counties, in Modesto for Stanislaus and Tuolumne counties, San Benito, and also Monterey County is covered by Allison Salinas, and also in San Luis Obispo County. So a lot of great assistance out there. There's your SBDC region. Our sponsors make this possible. And today, I guess we're even more powered by SBA. So and also partnering with the California Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, Mid-State Development Corporation, your source for SBA loans here in Kern County, California, the School of Business and Public Administration at CSU Bakersfield. Thank you all very much for your sponsorship and everything that you do to make this program a success. So we're up to August the 11th, 2020. And the Senate has passed an infrastructure bill. Well, you know me pretty well. I'm not going to sit here and talk about politics unless it affects some of our, pandemic relief programs, kind of the direction that we're going with pandemic relief, etc. And that happened with the Senate passing of the infrastructure bill. Now, everybody loves infrastructure. It was one of my first questions I asked when I started in this particular line of work. Many years ago, probably around 35 years ago. What is infrastructure? So I think we all know what it is now, except that we didn't know that it would have an effect on some of these programs. So we're going to get into that, the good, the bad, and the ugly on the infrastructure bill from a pandemic relief standpoint. Okay, the California Relief Grant is back and open. So businesses that did not apply for the California Relief Grant that goes all the way back to December 30th, 2020, and went through 6 rounds of particular funding. Where you're going to want to go for that, of course, is lindustry.com, but they're open for round 7. And also, those of you that might be waitlisted, continue to check your emails for an email from Lindustry. There's $1.5 billion that is being funded in California small businesses, either 5, 10, or $15,000 at a time. So do that and get those changes. And some of those changes that we talked about are going to affect EIDL. And we have a guest speaker that can talk to a lot of that today. So Andy Seeto from SBA will be joining us. Great to have Andy here today, and we'll be introducing him in a little while. We're going to talk a little bit today. Always what's up is that SBA 25% tool for score reduction. Now, the forgiveness portal, we'll get into that somewhat. There's that, but remember the forgiveness process is always going through your lender. So make sure the method of your lender is wanting you to seek forgiveness, but the 25% reduction tool is there to help those that have PPP loans under 150 for the second draw only, under 150. And we'll talk a little bit about that in more detail later. Hey, the shuttered venue grant is open. I can never get old. That never gets old saying that, you know, said it now for, 20 weeks, 25 weeks, something like that. The shuttered venue grant is open and they have money. So great opportunity if you can qualify for what SBA called their most difficult grant they've ever done. It's all cleared out. Remember, we had an applicant, a person on this webinar, and was approved in 3 days. So what's new at SBA? So we'll get a fresh grip on what is new with SBA, talk about more relief programs, your question, and of course, we're going to do a poll. So let's start with the particular poll today. And we're going to go with 3 questions that are just kind of, our scientific approach at trying to actually see what we can actually do some research and find out some information. And let's see, the polls are messing with me right now because let's try it again. Having a little problem opening the poll box and it's not going to open. So maybe we'll try it later. So no polls right now, as the poll box will not open on Zoom. 3 great poll questions too. I'll just give you a quick recap of what they were going to be. Maybe we'll do them next week. But it was going to be a kind of a recap of pandemic relief programs and your favorites. So it was going to be your favorite SBA. It was going to be your favorite non-SBA pandemic relief program. And then there was one other question that we'll just save for later. So one last chance to try to crack into the polls, and they are not letting me in. Okay, so there you have it. No polls. Okay, and for a minute, thought we were going to freeze up today, but let's instead jump into the status and action of our key stimulus programs. So as we mentioned, the venues, $16 billion original is open. The portal still remains open. Employee retention tax credit is open for the 4th quarter of 2020. We'll go through a little bit of what is the past and the history of the ERTC this afternoon. And if you were on last week, it said 2021 ends on 12/31. So this is a program not out of SBA, out of the IRS. And as part of the infrastructure bill that we'll talk about, it now has this program ending on 9/30. So that's going to really open a can of worms up for those that have been trying to manage their PPP to maximize an employee retention tax credit. The EIDL loan program is open and will be open until 12/31/2021. You can also request an increase. I'm sure we'll be covering that with our guest speaker. The EIDL advance and supplemental advances are open. And those are a couple of areas too that have been impacted by the infrastructure bill that we'll talk about shortly. The family leave tax credit that I really do a great job of not discussing in great detail, but it is open and is another program being a tax credit of the Internal Revenue Service. We mentioned the California Relief Grant Program is open. Round 7 is now open for those that have not applied or those are waitlisted. If you're waitlisted, be checking your emails. If you still want to apply, you still can through September the 16th. PPP forgiveness is open. Remember the 2020 version of your PPP from last year. And actually, if you got a second one in 2021, they're both due 10 months from the end of your covered period. Covered period can be 8 to 24 weeks. The Bakersfield Loan to Grant program is open. You're going to want to contact Access Plus Capital, who is doing a lot of the work on the Bakersfield Loan to Grant program. We know that our PPP first draw is closed, PPP second draw, and the PPP program for 2021 closed toward the end of May. What you want to do is you want to plan, and I know many of you may have been planning, and your planning was around the employee retention tax credit. And what we're finding is that a lot of things change over pandemic relief, and these are things that are changing now. Forgiveness is starting to happen, and there's a great appetite out there to get forgiveness done quickly and move on. The restaurant revitalization program is closed. The portal has now been closed. Congratulations to those that got in. And then also your PUA, your pandemic unemployment assistance on the federal level for independent contractors remains open until September 5th. So those are the items. And let's talk about the Senate infrastructure bill. And the Senate infrastructure bill was approved, I believe, on Monday. As you know, I'm not the political animal, not really following it a great deal until I started to see where some of the compromises were coming and some of the money was coming. And it is a $1 trillion Senate infrastructure bill. And it would pull $31 billion in unobligated funds from the EIDL program. So exactly how that would work was apparently, I guess, that they were looking to pay for this $1 trillion program, and 30 billion is a good sized chunk of change, at least around the Bearden household. So $31 billion was maybe the number that SBA, and I'm speculating like I do. I've been known to speculate, and my speculation on this would be that SBA looked at what they thought they were going to spend that was appropriated, and they subtracted from what the amount that they had, and this is where the 31 billion came from. So of that 31 billion, it's broken up into two different parts. 13.5 billion would come from the EIDL program, the EIDL COVID-19 loan program, the program that really started back, I believe, on about March 12th of 2020 were the first ones. We first started talking about them on March 18th, 2020. So 13.5 billion would come out of the EIDL program, the EIDL loan program, and then 17.5 billion or 17.6 billion would come from a program that is affiliated grants for businesses in low-income areas. And we would know that as, of course, the EIDL, the targeted EIDL advance and the supplemental. So, Andy's got some numbers to go over. It looks like, the targeted EIDL is about 2.6 billion is what they've paid out so far. It seems to me they had about 20 billion to start with. So I'm sure there'll be time to get it in. So if you still want to do a targeted or supplemental EIDL, or if it's pending. And, I've had a few calls this week from people who say they've tried to call in on the toll-free number for the SBA disaster unit. And it has just been really slammed this week, whereas usually in the past, they've had success in getting through. And it could be related to this news out right here of the money being taken away from EIDL and put into the Senate infrastructure bill. So not really getting into what's in the Senate infrastructure bill, although, actually, if you really wanted to see kind of something, because, I thought, hey, this would be great. I can go in there and I could read about this, but still, run into a little bit of a problem. And trying to help you out here, but hey, the poll's cooperating now. So let's go to the poll. As I mentioned earlier, that put it on the proper screen there. Is before we leave the infrastructure bill, there it is. Isn't that something? 2,704 pages. I didn't read the infrastructure bill. You probably know that. But anyway, it is out there. It's probably in your chat even, the infrastructure bill, if you want to look into it for more specifics. Our producer, Maureen Busher-Dang, has populated or will be populating the chat with some of the links that we're going over today. So you can grab those particular links, and one of them is that infrastructure bill. Okay, with the backdrop of that wonderful infrastructure bill, let's do our poll, because Mr. Poll is cooperating. Let's strike while the iron's hot. And again, the first question is going to be to ask, what is your favorite SBA pandemic relief program? And it could be either first or second draw or both of the PPP, the Restaurant Revitalization Grant. It could be the EIDL loan, the EIDL advance, or the EIDL supplemental. It could be the shuttered venue grant. It could be something other. So I'm not really sure what other is, because those are the 4 ones out of SBA, but I have a tendency to forget things. So jump in and vote. What is your favorite SBA pandemic relief program going back over the pandemic? You get one choice, and we're getting kind of something that's a little, spreading around a little bit. The PPP is the winner so far. People did like the PPP. Who doesn't like a good forgivable loan? So the bottom question, you can just ignore. I think that's where we were running into issue. So anyway, top question right there. Your favorite SBA pandemic relief program, single answer. I'm going to end the poll and share the results of that particular poll question. And 70% say PPP, forgivable loan. 22% the EIDL advance loan or supplemental advance. 9% of you, the restaurant revitalization. So thank you for that. And let's do another poll question. If the poll's willing. And it doesn't want to. So we did get one. So there's our poll question of the day. And just try now to actually, okay, maybe one more. How about your favorite non-SBA relief program? Is it Kern Recovers? And that can be both the loan and the PPE portion, the Employee Retention Tax Credit, the California Relief Grant, a City of Bakersfield program, or something else. Maybe it's a local program outside of this, such as the Wasco City program. Could be others as well. But we're seeing a lot of action kind of in the middle there with the Employee Retention Tax Credit, California Relief Grant, 2 programs that are still up and going right now. And give you another minute or two to jump in. We have about 51% of you that have participated in this poll. So we're going to stop it. So let's end the poll and let's share the results with you. And the California Relief Grant, look at that. 40% of you say it's your favorite non-SBA actual pandemic relief program, followed by 28% for the Employee Retention Tax Credit that is provided through the Internal Revenue Service. Then the other 16%, and Kern Recovers at City of Bakersfield coming in next. So thank you. And we're going to maybe have one more question for you, one more poll question. Let's see. So the third and final poll question is just not going to happen today. Okay, we'll do that one next week. Okay, so there's a little bit on the infrastructure, 2,702 pages on the infrastructure bill. Jumping back to our share of the slides, a little bit about ERTC. We really haven't talked a lot about it because there hasn't been final guidance by the IRS. But as you know, the ERTC has been a program that started last year. In 2020 until the very end of the year, you really could not do it in conjunction with PPP. That changed with the Economic Act in December 27th of 2020. And then also it allowed you to go back for the fourth quarter and do either an amended return or to file your payroll tax return and claim the employee retention tax credit. Then moving forward, we had it going through June, and then the American Rescue Plan extended it throughout 2021. And now it looks like we're going to be going back to 9/30. So what does that do for those of you that have been planning to spend and coordinate your PPP, either your first or second draw in 2021, over a covered period that includes both getting your 60% for PPP and then hopefully having some payroll left over for the employee retention tax credit? Well, it's going to make it difficult because essentially a 24-week covered period is 6 months. And unless you have one toward the very end of the PPP when it was originated and funded, and it could have happened because there were people that were having problems getting their PPP second draw or their 2021 done. So if you had it done the very end of May, theoretically, you're going to run a covered period through the end of potentially November. And so now with that knowing, if you have that open for a covered period for your PPP, you would be able to use payroll expenses in October and November and maybe claim some of the ERTC credit. Just a couple of ideas kind of working through this potential issue. Always contact your financial advisor, anything to do with tax credits, and talk it over with them. But it does take away some of the flexibility in managing your PPP with your employee retention tax credit. I think we've talked a lot about this. There's going to be more potentially coming out of the California Relief Grant. We will be talking potentially a little bit more, but let's focus on round 7 being open, and those that were waitlisted 1 through 6 still have an opportunity to get funded in this particular program. Some of the EIDL changes, we have our new one here, right there in the middle. Infrastructure bill takes over $30 billion in EIDL and EIDL advance, but your EIDL loan is considered now a 24-month period. I think that's really important, as I've been mentioning for a few weeks, several. Really important because really we got to remember your EIDL loan is for working capital and notes payable that were in place before the pandemic struck. So it gives you 24 months of that working capital now instead of only 6 months. The payment, of course, is deferred until next year. I believe Andy will talk up a little bit the targeted EIDL and supplemental. We talked a lot so far about the infrastructure bill and more details on that. The EIDL maximum that we were talking is gone from 150 to 500. It's created kind of a backlog with SBA, and their customer experience is improving. There's been a dramatic improvement according to information that I heard a couple of weeks ago as the program transitions from the disaster unit of SBA to their capital access unit, their Office of Capital Access. So more on the lending side of things. They have new processes, more personnel, and they're processing loans at a 12-fold increase as they were in June and late July. And again, we're starting to hear more and more people get their EIDL issues resolved, and it seems like SBA had hoped to be cleaned up with that by mid-August, so it's coming. Still time to request an increase in EIDL loan. It's based on the fact that some of the EIDL money is going away. Probably something you'd want to do sooner than later at COVID increase requests with an S at sba.gov. So there's still time to do that. Another increase coming. We talked about potentially EIDL being increased from $500,000 to $2 million, which in most disasters, or pretty much all disasters before the COVID-19 disaster, $2 million was the maximum for an economic injury disaster loan through SBA. It was reduced in order to make it more accessible to more people. So SBA had commented that they were operational under review. And when we said we'd have more soon, and now I'm in a football season almost starting up, I'm going to go to the football slogan. And now upon further review. So maybe further review means as of today, or as of the announcement with the infrastructure bill taking in some of the idle money, that might be something that falls off the table. So potentially that might have been a way to use up some of the proceeds that apparently were going to be left over for idle, which apparently maybe now have been moved to the infrastructure bill. Okay, you know your timeline for forgiveness, 24 weeks to use the fund. That's the maximum covered period. It can be as little as 8 weeks. We see most people opt into the 24 weeks. From 10 weeks from the end of your covered period to apply before SBA will start sending you a bill, or your bank will. Yeah, your lender has 60 days to verify and 90 days for the SBA to approve. The one thing that I want to remind you of, even the banks that are not opted into the COVID forgiveness portal that has opened up and we kind of went over. And to my recollection right now, I believe I heard that there is one lender in Kern County using it. But the other tool that was introduced at that time was the COVID revenue reduction score. And that was for second draw PPP loans of 150,000 and less. And what you can do is you can put in some other information. SB has an algorithm, and those individuals that did not provide information upfront, did not prove that they had a 25% reduction in any quarter in 2019 over 2020, will not need to go through that particular process. So that's the COVID revenue reduction score, and that is available for all. I've been mentioning the Nano program here with Access Plus Capital. That and really one of the things that, you know, since I have Andy's here right now, since I haven't introduced him, one of the things that we continue to ponder is what is going to happen with lending programs after the pandemic ends. Is there going to be any loosening of any of the lending standards? We have about 80% of the individuals who we've polled in the past have said that they've had a negative revenue and profit impact because of the COVID-19 crisis. So what that does is it makes future lending for those individuals more difficult. And where they might have been bankable, maybe now they're near bankable or not bankable. So kind of where that's going, Access Plus has this particular program, and I continue to talk about it. But let's move on to today's special guest. And today we have Andy W. Seeto with us. We'll get into the W later, Andy, but I've known Andy a long time, so I get to hack his introduction like no other. Andy was a long-term SBA lender before joining the agency. I believe he's been with the SBA since 2008, maybe it's 2009, but it was that last little crisis that Andy went to assist the SBA with, and has done an incredible job ever since. Like many of you out there, Andy is formerly self-employed. Hopefully most of you are still self-employed, but Andy was formerly self-employed, and Andy likes to golf, because I know I played golf with him last in December of 2017. Andy, it's been too long for both of us on the links. We need to play some golf. Thanks for joining us. It's great to have you on here, and take it away, Andy.
Thanks so much, Kelly, for that wonderful introduction. Appreciate that. And Maureen as well. Thank you for allowing me to come on to your Wednesday webinar. Appreciate that opportunity. And for all of you attending as well, thank you for taking your lunch hour. And especially if you're in the restaurant industry, thank you for taking during this lunchtime to come out and listen to some of the things that we have available for you in reference to information about not only the COVID-19 loan options that were out there or are still currently out there, but I'm also going to get into some of the regular SBA programs that are available and some of the benefits that have occurred during this time to assist the small businesses and our lending partners in doing more SBA loans going forward till September 30th, 2021. As Kelly mentioned, and we'll go over a little bit about the EIDL program, and then we'll go over a bit about that direct forgiveness program portal that's been opened up back on August the 4th, and we'll talk a bit about that. So again, appreciate the opportunity, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, and hopefully everything works out okay. All right, I think you've got the slide up with the SBA, right, Kelly, Maureen?
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, so some of the COVID-19 relief options that are still available right now with funds is, as Kelly mentioned earlier, the COVID-19 EIDL program. The federal government is not short on any acronyms, so we tend to shorten things up and put a lot of acronyms onto it. So in the economic injury disaster loan, we call it the EIDL program. And then the shuttered venues operator grant. In order for you to check on these programs and apply for these programs, you want to go to the SBA's website directly and then click on the COVID-19 relief options. And then there's going to be tabs for each one of these programs that you want to go into. The EIDL program, you'll apply directly to the SBA because that is a direct loan program through the SBA that has to be repaid to the SBA. It's not like PPP where it could be forgiven. But the EIDL is repaid and the terms are really good. You get a 30-year repayment term on it to pay it back, so you make your monthly payments really low on that end of it. And then the shuttered venues operator grant, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it because this is a true grant program. So under the federal guidance on this is that federal employees and especially SBA employees are not to provide too much information on the shuttered venues operator grant. But we do have, of course, the SBDC, Cal State University Bakersfield SBDC, that can assist you and provide the guidance for you to apply for that SVOG program there. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and switch the screens here a little bit and give you a look at the data for the EIDL program. And I hope I've got the right one. Do you see that screen there with the data?
You got it.
Okay, so this is what has been approved through the EIDL program through August the 5th, 2021. So inception of the COVID-19 EIDL. As you can see here, EIDL's approved 3.8 million loans that were approved for $244 billion. And just to highlight our one state here, this great state of California, 578,000 that were approved for $43 billion. So by far, California has received the most out of this program. And then we'll scroll down a bit to the targeted EIDL advance, which some of you may have received in the area here. Hopefully there's quite a bit of you, more than what I'm thinking. But again, California by far leads the way in how many of these targeted EIDL advance were funded and approved. So 50,000 of those, 416,931,000. And then we'll go down to the supplemental target advance. Again, these are items that you needed to qualify for and you had to be invited by the SBA to apply for these. But again, California leads the way at 39,000 applications approved and 195 million, I'm sorry, 115,000 that were supplied out there. So the program was a success in reference to how many numbers were out there. Of course, they are still going through the application process for this program. So if you have submitted your targeted EIDL or supplemental EIDL program, then you should be hearing something back from the Office of Disaster Assistance on that to get in there. Let's see, I'm on the going back to the right screen here. So that's some of the EIDL data that I just wanted to share you and just let you know that funds are being dispersed on it, and then it's quite a tremendous on-taking for a lot of the personnel at SBA to get those programs and review the applications and get them to the process of approving them and then get them to the process of funding them. Okay. As Kelly mentioned earlier, the customer experience and review process improvements. So pretty much the same information that Kelly had on there. There were some changes to help the process of moving these EIDL applications, the targeted EIDL advance and the supplemental advance to get those through the process. So We're hearing that they're moving things along much quicker these days. And so hopefully, if you do have an application in there, you'll be hearing something very soon. Okay, some of the things that there's a little bit of a misconception out there. For the most part, the targeted EIDL advance and the supplemental advance, you do have to be invited by SBA to apply for those two programs. So you would have had to apply for the EIDL program, the COVID-19 EIDL program, and then whether or not you accepted that loan, then it still allowed you to have in the system that you applied for COVID-19 EIDL. And then it allowed the SBA to have that information and that data from you, from your application, to send out the invite for the targeted EIDL advance and the supplemental advance. So you do have to qualify for these programs. It's not a given that because you receive the invite to apply, that you're going to automatically get the targeted EIDL advance and the supplemental advance. So you do have to go through these 3 points here. For the most part, most of you are going to be 300 and fewer employees. You can demonstrate that there's more than a 30% reduction in revenue. And here's the most important part, are in a low income community. And you have to click on this mapping tool on the website, or if they sent you that email invite, they would have gave you those links on that email. And you would have had to click on that mapping tool and put in your business address. And your business address had to fall into the low income community census area. So if it did not, then you would not be eligible to apply for that targeted advance. So make sure you check that before you complete the application and submit it, because if you didn't fall within that low income community areas, then you're going to get a decline letter from the SBA. Supplemental target advance, again, same thing, had to have been by SBA invitation. Again, the criteria is basically if you applied for the COVID-19 EIDL, that would have provided the information to the SBA to sort that data and then get that invitation out to you. But the same thing here, you got to meet these criterias. So for the supplemental, you had to have 10 or fewer employees, more of an economic loss during that 8-week period of 50% or more, and then also located in a low income community. So again, you would have to check your mapping tool to see if you fall within those low income communities there. From what I heard, that I guess the color of the map, if you put in your address, it has to be purple. And if you fall in that purple colored territory there, then you are eligible to complete that application process. You would be amazed, and you would think that based on your location that you would be in a rural or low income community, but sometimes in some of these maps that you could be just across the street from the low income community on the other side of the street, and you would not be considered a low income community. So you do have to check the map and make sure that you fall within the criteria there. Okay, this has been happening quite a bit as well. So I wanted to bring this up to you all because some of you on this call may have encountered this and are trying to work with it and deal with it. But if any of your advance funds returned by the banks, so currently SBA is working on an update to the SBA system that will enable the SBA to redisperse those funds as soon as possible. If you haven't already done so, you should email with a photo ID front and back and a check with the word void written across the check. And then in the subject line of your email with your application number. So you want to put in the subject line of your email your loan application number and send to this email address. So when the system is set up to return those funds and redisperse them, they'll have that information in there and it'll be ready to go. If the original disbursement was returned by the bank, be assured that the funds were obligated for you and remain available even if the issue is not resolved immediately. So if those are returned by the bank, don't worry, it's still obligated to you as the applicant and the approved applicant. And those funds, as soon as the system is reset back up to be redispersed, those will be done. Businesses awaiting redisbursement will be notified when the funds are redispersed, and more than likely via email. Some common reason funds are returned is that the account is closed, the applicant provided an incorrect routing or account number, the name or EIN number on SBA's deposit does not match the name or EIN number on the bank account, or the account is a personal account rather than a business account. You will need to contact your bank to learn the reason specific to your case. So this here, the common reasons here, that seems to be a lot of the issues as well. And one of the biggest issue is that you're trying to get those funds sent into a personal account rather than a business account. So I think a lot of those cases that they're returned by the banks because then the banks are looking out for it, and then they're feeling that there could be like a fraud type situation going on there. Okay. SBA does examine every case where funds are returned and contacts the applicant to request any additional information or documentation needed to overcome the reason for the return. Okay, now I want to go over some of the happy things that are happening right now with the regular SBA programs. So outside of COVID-19, beyond the pandemic, and moving forward, which is the title of this webinar, I believe today, is so what SBA has done with some of the with the approval of the Economic Aid Act of December 27, 2020, there's been some temporary elimination of the SBA fees. So some of you are familiar with our 504 program, which is for our fixed asset financing for commercial real estate or fixed equipment for businesses. It basically allowed for a reduction of fees. So in this program, you have two parties involved. You have your commercial bank that's involved with the program, and then we have our certified development company that is authorized by SBA to underwrite the 504 program for the SBA and then submit it in for approval purposes. And then they also service the 504 loan. We do have a very good certified development company in Bakersfield, and the name of Midstate Development Corporation there. And so if you need any assistance on that in reference to looking at purchasing commercial real estate for your business, and now you can also look at refinancing your existing mortgage on your commercial property to do that. Property does need to be owner occupied, so it's not for investment purposes or those types of scenarios where you're not occupying the property for your business. So that fee has been reduced where the commercial lender, or normally they would have to be charged a participation fee. That has been eliminated for now. And then the CDC processing fee that's charged to you as the borrower / applicant, which is normally 1.5% of the amount of the 504 loan, will be also eliminated until September 30th, 2021. So that's good news, and that's a good cost savings to a lot of you folks out there in the business world. In addition, this is the more popular program for a lot of our lenders and also borrowers out there, is the 7A loan guarantee program. So same thing, it started December 27th through September 30th, 2021. In order to incent the lenders to actively pursue new loan originations for our small business community, and Kelly brought this up as well, what's going to be the interest level for commercial lenders to do loan originations. So one thing that SBA wanted to do was to increase the loan guarantee percentage to induce and entice the lenders to look at new originations for our small business community out there. So it increased, the lenders may request up to 90% maximum. So with this 90% loan guarantee, a maximum loan amount can go up to $4,166,666. Okay. If you are familiar with our SBA Express loan program, the maximum was increased to $1 million from $350,000. And then on October 1, 2021, the loan maximum will be at $500,000. The guarantee percentage also increased on this for loans of $350,000 or less, is at 75%. It used to be 50%. So it's a little bit better for the lenders. Loans greater than $350,000 will have a maximum guarantee percentage of 50%. So that remains the same for the lenders. The SBA guarantee fee reduced to $0 to business applicants. So that is also a big cost savings to you as a small business, because that fee, if you get to the higher loan amounts of the program, that guarantee fee could go up as high as 3.75% on a ladder basis, depending on the dollar amounts. So it could get quite expensive, like in the 100,000 range, somewhere around there. So that's been eliminated to 0 up through September 30th, 2021. And then also to get the lenders to use the SBA programs, the lender's annual service fee is reduced to 0 as well. Okay, there are some restrictions that apply, so you'll want to contact your commercial lender and find out what those restrictions are, and then discuss them with them. But this is good news for it. And if you are looking for funding outside of the COVID-19 programs, this is definitely now the time to do so before September 30th. And because you want to do it now, because your lender has to put the application together and then submit the loan application for approval through the SBA in order for them to meet that September 30th approval date and be able to take advantage of these fee reductions and the higher loan guarantee amount. The other thing that SBA is has a very good, try to expand businesses through exporting activities. So we do have 3 loan programs: the Export Working Capital Program, which is like a line of credit; the International Trade Loan Programs, where you can use it to fix asset purchases, commercial property, doing working capital, debt refinancing, inventory purchases, and so forth. And then we also have the Export Express Program, which is the smaller amounts, which goes up to $500,000. And it allows you to do that as a line of credit as well, or a term loan. So we do have some things in reference to that can help you in reference to if you're looking to get into exporting, or if you're a company that's already exporting some of your products and you are looking to expand your exporting opportunities, you can do that. You don't even have to be a direct exporter. You can be an indirect exporter, which basically means that you can sell your product to another company here domestically, as long as they in turn will sell your product to a foreign buyer. So that's what they call an indirect exporter. So that would be eligible, and you would basically get a letter from your domestic buyer stating that they are purchasing whatever product that you're selling, and then they will in turn and sell that to a foreign buyer that would be exported out. So it is a good program that's out there, and SBA is looking for more businesses in this area to look at if you're looking to increase your sales and looking at it through foreign buyers. Exporting resources. SBA also provides funding through each states of the United States here in reference to a STEP grant that they provide to the states. And the state of California has a program called the Individual Company Export Program, and it's designed to reimburse eligible California small business up to $5,000 for eligible export promotion related expenses. It is a competitive application, so not all applications will be funded. And then the other resources that we work very well with is U.S. Department of Commerce, their International Trade Administration. They just recently appointed a new director for the Bakersfield office, Alicia Rios. She's been a long time international trade specialist for the state of California, and then also for the area in Fresno, the area there, and providing trade assistance in those areas for our small businesses. And then the Fresno, we do have Glenn Roberts, the director there, and Bernadette Rojas, who's the senior trade specialist. So the Department of Commerce, International Trade Administration, they do a lot for businesses that are exporting. Depending on what your product is, they can do a lot of research to figure out which country would be the best fit for your product. They can also vet your potential buyers and contact the embassies in those countries to see if they've heard about those companies, those buyers that you're looking at in those foreign countries, and see if they've run into any issues, and they can run background checks on them and all that good stuff. So they are set up to assist you as businesses to expand your exporting processes or get your business into exporting altogether. Okay, back over to the COVID-19 stuff, process for loan forgiveness. your PPP loan forgiveness is not automatic. Okay, folks, you do need to initiate the process of getting the forgiveness in. So don't expect your lender to tell you exactly when you need to submit your forgiveness application. Okay? You do have to be proactive on it and try to get a hold of your lender if you can. And if you can't, keep trying, because they're ultimately the ones that have to submit the PPP forgiveness application to the SBA. Okay, so here's the process. You would submit your loan forgiveness application based on the applicable form that you would need. So whether it's the 3508 long form, the 3508 EZ form, or the 3508 S form for the loans of 150,000 or less. And then any required documents to the lender. Lender has up to 60 days to review it. If you have submitted and this is in quotes, complete package, okay? If you did not submit a complete package to the lender, that starts the clock over, that 60-day clock over to the lender until you have submitted the requested information back to the lender, okay? Upon that time, during that time frame after that, then the lender will need to submit it to SBA. The SBA will have up to 90 days to get the decision back to the lender, whether or not it's going to be a full forgiveness or a partial forgiveness. So depending on what it is, no matter what it is, whether it's full or partial, the lender will notify you, the borrower, of the forgiveness amount. Okay? Any remaining balance after the forgiveness must be repaid by the borrower on or before the loan maturity date. So that will be amortized out over the maturity, which if you received the PPP loans in the early part of PPP, you would have received a 2-year term on it. And then after that, the loans that were approved were given 5-year terms. You can request, if you do have the 2-year term to repay back and you do have a balance due, you can request through the lender to increase that term to 5 years. And that would be the lender's decision on whether or not they would need to be able to do that for you or not. So that would be a conversation you would have to have with that PPP lender. Okay, so as Kelly mentioned a little bit earlier, 10 months to request forgiveness. So deadline to submit. After your covered period ends, you do have 10 months of deferment period on that to start getting your information together and getting ready to submit your forgiveness application. If not, then your lender will definitely send you out a statement to start to collect that first payment and payments beyond that if you have not submitted it. So an example of this, if your PPP loan was dispersed on June 25th, 2020, your covered period will end on December 10th, 2020, 24 weeks. Borrower must ask for forgiveness by October 10th, 2021. If not, borrower must begin making payments on or after October 10th, 2021. Okay, if you have submitted your PPP forgiveness application to the lender and the lender is reviewing it and they have not submitted to SBA yet, you will not have to make any payments. So even if it goes into when your first payment is supposed to start, as long as your lender has your forgiveness application, your completed forgiveness application, you will not have to make a payment on that until SBA renders the decision back to the lender, okay? So again, borrower's responsibility to submit, and this is also key, accurate and complete forgiveness application. I have heard some stories that some of the PPP borrowers that have submitted forgiveness applications in to the lenders, and the lenders didn't catch an error that the PPP borrower did. So let's say, for example, their PPP loan was for $24,500, but when they submitted their information into either the lender's application or their online application forgiveness portal, they left out the 2, and it was only $4,500, and the lender didn't catch it for some reason. And SBA went ahead and approved that forgiveness amount at $4,500. At this point in time, there's not a process to correct that. Okay, so you want to make sure you check and double check and possibly triple check your numbers and your calculations and making sure you're putting in the right information. Probably a good thing to do is to download the application that you're going to utilize through the lender from the SBA.gov's website, and then work it by hand and doing it that way, or working it online on your computer and then typing in the information. And then that way you can check it, make sure you've got all the numbers correct and the information correct. And then from there, you can use that information to fill in the PPP application to the lender. Okay, if you need guidance or assistance, contact your local resource partner. You can find your most local resource partner by going to the SBA.gov, clicking on local assistance. As of course, CSU Bakersfield SBDC, one of the top SBDCs around. So if you're in their area of territory to assist you, you can definitely contact them. And then we also have our other resource partners as well. Or you may work through your tax or bookkeeping professional if they're up to date on all the parameters of the PPP forgiveness process. Contact your lender or check their website on the lender's forgiveness process. You have to understand the lenders have the authority to take these forgiveness applications the way they want to process it, okay? So if they request for information, that's what they want. That's what they want to do. So don't argue with them, just provide it to them and try to move along as quick as possible. If you need any further assistance, of course, you can also use that same link to locate the nearest SBA district office near you, or check the PPP FAQs and interim final rules on the SBA website or the Treasury website. Okay, Kelly brought this up too. So this was just created and opened up to the public on August the 4th, 2021. It's the COVID revenue reduction score and the direct forgiveness. Key thing on this slide here, only for loans of 150,000 or less for lenders that have opted in. So the lender, the PPP lender, had to have opted in for you as the borrower of a loan of 150,000 or less and using the form 3508S, that they would have to opt in to allow you to go into the direct forgiveness portal to submit your forgiveness application in, okay? So loans of 150,000 or less, and this is the reason why SBA created this portal, was that it represented 93% of outstanding PPP loans. Approximately 6.5 million loans remain to be forgiven. Many borrowers will have to begin making payments on these loans in the very near future. SBA has developed solutions to assist, which is this COVID revenue reduction score and the direct forgiveness. For lenders that choose to opt in, SBA is allowing borrowers to submit forgiveness application for first draw and second draw loans using the SBA platform. It provides a single secure location for borrowers to apply for loan forgiveness using electronic equivalent at SBA form 3508S. Platform will notify lenders when borrowers apply for forgiveness. In the platform, lender reviews forgiveness application, issues forgiveness decision to SBA. Okay, so this is very important as well. So even though it's a direct forgiveness portal with the SBA system, the lender is not totally cut out of the process. The lender still has to review it and then go through the process of giving the forgiveness decision to SBA. So when you submit it through the SBA platform, the direct forgiveness platform, the lender will be notified that that has been submitted into the system, and then they will go into the platform and then review it and then submit their decision to SBA. So the lender, PPP lender, is not totally cut out of that whole forgiveness process. Borrowers must submit forgiveness application directly to the lender when the lender does not opt in to use the direct borrower forgiveness process. Borrower's PPP loan amount is greater than $150,000, okay? So an important part about this as well is that if you have ownership in affiliate businesses, and based on the number of dollar amount of those PPP loans that your affiliates may have received as well, if it exceeds $150,000, you would not be able to submit through the forgiveness portal, okay? If you are able to sign into the system because your lender has opted in and you're reviewing that information, because it's going to pre-populate all that information from your application. If the data in that information does not agree with what you know of, okay, by the SBA system record, or cannot validate the identity in the platform because possibly there was an unreported change of ownership, you would need to submit your forgiveness application to the lender, or you would need to get a hold of the PPP lender, let them know of the issues that are involved there, and then have them corrected. And then that way, then you can go back into the platform and then submit it through there again. Okay. All right. Okay, so the Coveted revenue reduction score, Kelly brought up as well, for the second draw loans only, and it's only to allow you to use that 25% reduction in revenues, okay? So the lenders don't have to opt into the direct forgiveness platform to be able to get this score. They can use it no matter what, because it's in the forgiveness platform. And so if you did not provide any data or information showing or financial information showing that you have the 25% reduction in revenues from year over year, then the lenders can use this Coveted revenue reduction score, okay? Okay, so this is, I'm just gonna go briefly here because I see Kelly's coming on and I think he's giving me the cue to end here quickly. This is when score validates the borrower's revenue reduction if borrower has not already provided documentation to the lender. So that's a key thing. So if you did not provide that documentation, if you have provided documentation to the lender will make a forgiveness decision based on that documentation, okay? When score does not validate the borrower's revenue reduction, if the borrower has not already provided documentation, then if the score doesn't validate it, then they can use the documentation, your financial information, to support that revenue reduction. Okay, so that again just goes over that the lender can do it. They don't need to opt in for direct forgiveness. And this just gives you an idea and the link to check the direct forgiveness sba.gov to sign in on and try to use that program there. And in order for you to find your lender, if they opted in, you can go to the sba.gov/PPP, click on loan forgiveness, and under to apply for loan forgiveness, click on the list of lenders participating in direct forgiveness, and you'll get an Excel spreadsheet in alphabetical order of those lenders that have opted in. Or you can try to register on the platform directly. And if the lender did not opt in, you will get a message back to you that's saying to contact your PPP lender. All right, Kelly, we are done.
Hey, great. A few questions. Since you're on the direct forgiveness and on this right now, is regarding the new reduction score where people don't have to, if they have a second draw, have to provide documentation that they had a reduction from 20 to 19. What does that score need to look like?
You know, that hasn't been provided to us out here in the field. So I'm not sure how the lenders, what they see in the platform to get that score, or if it says it's validated or non-validated.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll get a little bit more information on that algorithm when it becomes available. Also, can a nonprofit get a 504 loan?
No, you do have to be set up as a for-profit business, okay? There is just a slight, small opportunity where a nonprofit can own a for-profit business and potentially be worked that way. But the for-profit business has to be the applicant.
One of our attendees wants to know the name of the program for purchasing inventory.
You can use
the loan program.
You can use the regular 7A program. You can do it that way. If your dollar amount is lower, we also have other through our community development financial institutions that Kelly brought up, Access Plus Capital, and there's quite a bit of others throughout the state and country. Those CDFIs, they do have also micro loan programs of 50,000 and under. So sometimes those scenarios might be a little bit easier to get the funding through. So it just all depends on your situation and your relationship with your commercial bank and seeing where you can get the funding through.
Well, here's a great question on taking advantage of the infrastructure bill as far as doing some government contract work. How can we prepare our business for success and winning contracts once the bill gets obligated? Will there be anything like a specific NACE code, with some hot terms in order to meet some of those bill's major objectives?
Yeah, definitely a great question. Our office and some of the other SBA offices throughout the state of California, we're fortunate to have 6 SBA district offices in the state of California. So each one of those offices does have a government contracting specialist in the office. And we do offer monthly webinars on government contracting. So I'm pretty sure when that bill comes into play, more than likely, they're going to be having webinars on specifically that and trying to get businesses to get themselves ready for government contracting, bidding, and so forth.
Great. And there's also a pretty unique little program for certain businesses, the 8A program.
Correct. Yeah, the 8A certification program is strictly for federal government contracting purposes. So you can look to signing up your business for that 8A certification as well.
Very detailed process, but very valuable for those businesses that get it, I might add. Okay, we had one question that was emailed, Andy, and you kind of touched on this a little bit with loan forgiveness and about the need to, once you file a loan forgiveness, it almost cannot be undone. So unfortunately, what happened with this attendee was the company was not afforded the option of including the new SBA allowances, and that would be the cost, the eligible costs that were added in late December. That would be worker protection, that would be covered property damage, it would be expenditures to suppliers that are essential at the time of the purchase, and also covered operating expenditures, so for cloud and other type software. So apparently they weren't given the opportunity to include those in the forgiveness application. And they used a national bank here, a smaller national bank that might have been tied to a fintech. I won't say the name. And they were they had approval on a forgiveness application. Is there any way that they can revise the forgiveness application or go back under those terms?
Well, yeah, that would have to be a conversation with the PPP lender. If they have not submitted it to SBA and SBA hasn't rendered a decision, that lender can withdraw the forgiveness application and continue to work that through with you as the forgiveness applicant. If they have submitted it to SBA and SBA has rendered the decision back to the lender and the lender is basically stated that you can only get a partial forgiveness, then SBA agrees with that. Then at that time, the lender is supposed to notify you that this is the forgiveness amount, this is the partial forgiveness amount, this is how much you need to pay back. And then they're supposed to also give you the information that if you do not agree with the lender's decision, that you have 30 days from the date of that notification that you can request for an SBA review of the lender's decision. And then from there, when you do that, then the lender will notify SBA that the PPP recipient has requested for SBA review of the lender's forgiveness decision.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff, Andy. From my standpoint, I would want to know the timing of when you submitted the PPP forgiveness, because if it was before December 27th, 2020, those other expenditures hadn't passed into that new law.
Right.
And I know I've said this a lot on this throughout this webinar series, but boy, it sure pays to procrastinate on a lot of this stuff. Rule changes, more favorable terms. PPP, one of those P's should have been procrastination, the paycheck procrastination program. But it just seemed the rules got a little softer and easier as you went down. And oftentimes we see people that were in situations to where they can't go back and change what was already approved. So good luck with that.
And in some cases,
Okay.
I mean, in some of those rules, they did make it retroactive. So it just all depends. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that does it. And Andy, Thank you much for joining us. We'll be back next week with number 75 of our webinar series. If I run into any questions, I have a tendency to ask Andy some of them, and he's worked with a couple of clients. So if you have a really unique situation, send me an email and we'll try to do what we can in order to get that resolved. So Andy, thanks for coming on again.
You're welcome.
It's great to hear your voice. Don't be so shy next time.
I won't.
Um,
I'll be a little bit looser.
So that's a wrap for number 74. For Andy Seeto, I'm Kelly Bearden. We'll be back next week. Everybody have a great week. Bye-bye now.